Hello, it's Crad here to answer a question on optimizing death sorceries. But if we take a look at the list of death sorceries, we quickly realize that we're really just looking at Rancorcall and Ancient Death Rancor, which are quite similar. The other death spells really aren't great. One thing about death sorceries is their faith requirement, which often leads people to run them with intelligence and faith builds using the Golden Order seal plus the Staff of Death, which both scale with these two stats. The problem with this? Let's take a look at their scaling graphs. The higher the yellow bars, the higher the scaling during that portion of the stat investment. But do be mindful that the y-axis is different. For example, Golden Order has 3 scaling as the max point, whereas the Prince of Death Staff has 1.4. The main point here is, Golden Order seal's 2 main soft caps are the 30 Intelligence and Faith mark, and the 45 Intelligence and Faith mark. On the other hand, aside from above 80 Intelligence and Faith, the Prince of Death Staff scales the worst below 30-point mark, and really only kicks it up a notch after the 60-point mark. If none of what I just said made sense to you, that's alright. All you need to know is the conclusion. The Prince of Death Staff and Golden Order seal do not overlap at all where they scale best. With the Prince of Death Staff being so backloaded, it just isn't a good option at all for meta PvP levels. How about the Gelmir's staff that also scales to intelligence and faith, you ask? Well, while it scales a tad bit better early game, due to the Prince of Death staff's bonus for death sorcery, the Gelmir staff will not resolve our issue. So let us take a look at an example build. This isn't the final build for the video, by the way, so don't be in a hurry to copy it down. We're going to do some analysis first. The first question you might have is, why Carrion Regal Scepter instead? While I know investing into intelligence and faith allows for a variety of incantation and spell combos, if we're trying to just maximize death sorceries, it is more beneficial to meet the minimum faith requirements and invest into intelligence. It also makes the other spells we run a lot stronger than using the Prince of Death staff. Allow me to prove it to you. At 80 intelligence and 24 faith, the Carrion Regal has a much higher sorcery scaling than the Prince of Death staff, even if we give the Prince of Death its 10% bonus. Now, the lots of you would wonder, isn't it better to split intelligence and faith evenly? No, it isn't. Using the same stat investment level, we can get 52 intelligence and 52 faith, which will result in less sorcery scaling for the Prince of Death staff, not more. So what about the Rancorcall? Is it just a weaker Ancient Death Rancor? Well, yes and no. The biggest selling points of Rancorcall are its lower faith requirement and lower FP cost, not the damage it deals. If we lower the faith here and replace our Regal staff with Lusats, this will be the math for the two Death Rancor comparisons. Ancient Death Rancor has 49 NV per skull, uncharged, and 9 skulls. Multiply that by 1 for the base Carrion Regal at 80 intelligence, we get 441 NV over 9 hits, before factoring in sorcery scaling. For the Rancorcall, we get 54 NV times 6 skulls, and here I will factor in Lusats and another 7% for potential defense scaling effect favoring higher one-hit damage. We get a total of 379 NV. Ancient Death Rancor also still costs more FP, but the last thing to consider is time consumption. Both spells take up the same amount of time, so I will still very much prefer the Ancient Death in this case, if we don't factor in other spells. So when can we run Rancorcall well? First, I'm doing this on a 150 build. If we go back to Carrion Regal Scepter, the additional points into Faith are usually just dumped into Mind, or for me to save a talisman slot in my case. But what if I wasn't using such a light weapon, only weighing 2.5 weight? I would need a lot more endurance, which if I don't want to drop my Mind by much, I must drop my intelligence. Dropping my intelligence isn't the end of the world, but it does lower all the damage of my other spells in my build, and the weapon damage as well. Therefore, the decision between Rancorcall and Ancient Death Rancor is a question of whether or not your build has enough spare points for Faith in order to upgrade a single spell in your build. If you don't often spam Ancient Death Rancor, then Rancorcall is actually very good for making people run as well. Finally, let us take a look at the death build I've settled on. Because the build I've settled on doesn't have a high equip load and I'm focused on spamming quite a bit of death sorcery anyway, I've decided to use the Ancient Death Rancor over the Rancorcall. You will see versus the first iteration, I've dropped the Stargazer Talisman for Crimson Amber, while lowering my Vigor by 5 points in order to add to Intelligence to fill up Stargazer's hole. Right now, some people will definitely rage at the screen, saying, "Oh no, you're doing optimization wrong for not going for 60 Vigor, especially for a 150 build." This is why I didn't want to show this in the beginning, because they're wrong, and I didn't want too many questions at one time. You see, versus using Stargazer Heirloom, I'm actually getting 3.1% more HP with Crimson Amber Talisman here. And instead of dropping Intelligence, I've decided to drop Vigor, because here is the comparison for the spell damage lost versus HP lost. You can see in terms of percent increases, the Intelligence actually benefits me more per point, as HP gain from Vigor is decreasing, rather than constant. Why didn't I lower my Vigor even more, since 54 Vigor to 55 Vigor jump is less than the Intelligence jump? The argument here is that Intelligence doesn't increase my weapon art and weapon AR as much as staff scaling, whereas Vigor universally makes me tankier. Still, the build leans more towards the sorcery side of things, so this is the build I've settled on. As for why 20 Mind and not dropping a point or two there, it is because of the 4 spells I'm running. A very great opener with this build is using the 4 spells in order, which cost 117 FP. I need 20 Mind for me to be able to do this without drinking an FP pot. It also just makes the Mage gameplay smoother. Anyway, here are some videos. This build is definitely very annoying for the opponent to play against, because when you're given a chance, you do want to spam the very annoying Ancient Death Rancor. Nebula on Wing of Asto can help you keep your opponents away, or set up a roll catch for you after they dodge the Nebula. Oh yeah, one last thing. Going for light roll for sorcery builds means that you can't take advantage of backloaded staff scaling, so instead, I'm just running the Wing Crystal tier for equip load when I do drink my physic. If you want to support my work, please buy my book in the description down below, and you can request a topic like this one too. We start with the sequence I introduced, and the Moon spell is castable even with its long cast time because, it takes... People usually just run away from your Death Rancor, so you have a lot more time. By the way, the Moon spell also eats up most projectile spells that come towards your way. Okay, he's playing aggressively with just a spear. It's difficult for mages to deal with weapons like heavy thrusting swords, for example, and other weapons that have the reach. But if you look carefully, you can dodge most attacks, even though you have to play more defensively. For example, we can do Swift Glintstone Shard jump pokes, or trade him with a Wing of Asto heavy attack here. So for the Moon spell, if they are at a close range and they're coming closer, it's actually not good to cast it, because they can just easily dodge it. You usually want this at a further range. And if they're playing aggressively, you want to use Phalanx to keep them away instead, or your Nebula. Here we set up the Nebula and attack him with our Curve Sword, just a normal light attack, and we can poke him to death. Oh, okay, I have to dodge that. We can just spam a lot of Rancor, and then when he gets away, the Moon spell again. The Moon spell has surprisingly good tracking. Okay, there you see I proc Frost, because that was my second Moon, and I chose Ronnie's Moon because it has a lot of Frost buildup. So if you do miss like 1 or 2 Moons and they don't have enough robustness, usually like 2 Moons is definitely enough for a Frostbite. Okay, he was coming too close. I should have not used the Moon spell. Nebula... Oh, he's gonna try rolling. Poor guy. That just won't work on better players. Nebula, see if he's gonna roll, and catch again. Ooh, okay, this is a pain. If he's just gonna spam that Death Dagger's weapon art, this is gonna be a long game. Okay, heavy thrusting swords. Thankfully he doesn't look too good with it, but as I said, they're a good counter to most casters in general. Thankfully, yeah, he isn't that great, so we can still win here. Oh, okay, that was bad. I ate an entire weapon art. Our Ancient Death Rancor putting in the work, especially with the poise damage. Oh, okay, he potted. Alright. It's fine, we can still try and win this. He doesn't have a whole lot of poise. We'll just give him the handicap, it's fine. But since he's gonna pot, I'm just gonna throw even more Ancient Death Rancors and see how he likes to deal with it. With 20 mine, we can spam 5 Ancient Deaths in a row for 120 FP. Oh, even more pots, alright. Let's try to get him with a moon, and if not, a frostbite. Oh, that was a bad play on his side. And we're gonna pressure so he can't drink, and GG. And he has a moon veil for sure. He might, but he's not doing it aggressively enough, so he's just rolling a lot. But honestly, rolling is not a bad way to deal with Ancient Death Rancor. You can dodge it quite easily by rolling. It's just annoying because you kinda are put on the defensive if they do successfully cast it. Okay, he's probably trying to Moonveil now, and we can just whittle him down, do some pokes. There we go. And turn around and catch him with the swings. The Nebula itself doesn't have to hit for you to put in damage with Nebula, because they're usually forced to roll away from it, otherwise they take damage and a long stun. I'm gonna try to finish him with our melee attacks, since he's just playing a fun build anyway, so I'll go easy on him. We can just strafe this, nothing scary, no setups whatsoever. Instead, we'll just do Ancient Death, and he's forced to run, and we have superior tracking. Ah, I forgot, I wanted to go for the melee poke. Star Shower to replace Stars of Ruin, but once again, if you know the timing of the dodge, like so, you dodge after a split second or like right before it touches you, you can fully dodge. The last one I accidentally dodged too late, but it's our turn to spam Ancient Death. So the good thing about Ancient Death is it's actually longer range than Star Shower, because it tracks you over a longer distance, and it also has more poise damage in total. So if he wants to spam from afar, I can also hold Ancient Death Rancor and have them track slowly. Oh, he severed. Oh well, it's okay. Let's go for a charged R2 and a catch. Yay! We actually hit. So Wing of Astos Heavy Attack is a ranged magic projectile that actually costs stamina and not FP. It's also an option you can do. Plus you can dodge cancel it since it's a curved sword. Alright, we don't always have to do the moon opener, even though I thought that was a good time to moon. I'm just demonstrating, you know, you can do this spell order anyhow you want. Rolling in here with the Phalanx, there we go, to punish his recoveries. Okay, whips have enough range. Oh, he rolled. But now we have such an HP advantage, we can just, you know, poke him down and whittle him down with our smaller attacks. Oh no, wrong click. That was a massive mess up on my end. I didn't want the Nebula there. Oof, queued the wrong attack. Okay, with this HP deficit, we'll have to play much more carefully. If we eat another one of the Astral Wars, we're definitely screwed. or actually even one of the smaller spells. Is this Stars of Ruin? That's fine. Okay, once again we'll spam this and set this up. There we go, Ancient Death putting in some work. Okay, aggressive power stance Great Spear with Royal Knight's Resolve. That's a massive pain. Okay, you have to try to make distance if possible. It's a good thing he drank his physic, and we can try to space him out, and he can't just, you know, go for roll catches. Okay, so that was bad move on his part. He basically sort of like did 2 light rolls away, and when you give mages distance, it usually favors the mage. Oh, yeah, the crouch poke. The power stance crouch poke. Okay, we still have hope here. And he gave us distance again to, I guess, to use a buff, but Ancient Death. Let's try to go for a risky move. See if this hits. Nope. Okay, FE Flask while we have the time. Dodge, and we'll set up a Phalanx dodge. And he's not fast enough. He needs to get close enough for the power stance crouch attack to work well. But we can whittle him down. Nebula. Dodge. Okay, we'll poke him. Nice. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and see you next time.